Take 30 seconds and listen to this clip of Larry Fink talking about Bitcoin.
We're seeing more and more legitimate long-only investors investing in it. There was an article about a foundation, endowment just bought a lot of IBIT. But I can tell you there are a number of sovereign funds that are standing by. They're adding incrementally at 120, at 100. I know they bought more in the 80s. Right. That's fine. And they're establishing a longer position. And you own it over years. This is not a trade. You own it for a purpose. We're seeing more and more legitimate.
Larry Fink just told you what's happening. Bitcoin is rotating from the previous whales from 2010, 2011, 2012. The people who bought Bitcoin at, let's say, $1, a penny, 10 cents, 5 cents, whatever the price was, they're okay with selling their Bitcoin at $100,000. Now, that Bitcoin is rotating to brand new whales. Those brand new whales aren't retail investors. They're not just random people who are accumulating Bitcoin because they think it's going to go up. They're university endowments. They're sovereign funds. They're companies that have an operating business that's making a lot of money every single year. These investors have long time horizons. They're not thinking of trading in and out of Bitcoin to make a quick profit and then buy back in. They're planning to hold Bitcoin for as long as possible. And if they ever need money, they're going to use that Bitcoin as collateral. They're going to sign these agreements for debt to borrow fiat currency against that Bitcoin. So let's say the US dollar, and they're going to sign those agreements in a way that they can't get liquidated and their Bitcoin can't be taken away from them. So this is the future of Bitcoin. The future of Bitcoin is everybody participating, institutional investors participating, retail investors participating, traders, people who are just gambling on Bitcoin. Everybody is participating in this market. And over time, the market just keeps getting deeper and deeper. I want you to watch a second video here. This is a video at the time this guy was a university professor. He was at Harvard. Now he's the chair of international economics.
Ken, let me ask you about something else that you have had strong opinions on in the past, which is Bitcoin. Back in October, you were talking about the price bubble collapsing. Looking at the level right now, it's trading around 11,300 today. Have we seen the bottom, or is that collapse still coming? And in fact, if that is what you expect, what do you think will be the trigger?
Oh, I think Bitcoin will be worth a tiny fraction of what it is now if we're headed out 10 years from now. It's basically, if you take away the possibility of money laundering, tax evasion, its actual uses as a transactions vehicle are very small. Some of the Bitcoin advocates say, well, it's beautiful. People will hold it because it's beautiful. I think that's nonsense. So the trigger, of course, is going to be regulation, but it's not going to happen overnight. It really needs to be global regulation. Even if the U.S. cracks down on it and China cracks down, but Japan doesn't, people will be able to still launder money through Japan. But I don't think it's going to go to zero, because I think there'll be rogue nations who feel outside the global financial system, not invested in it, that will still accept it. But I would see $100 as being a lot more likely than 100,000 10 years from now.
There's a reason why I mentioned Harvard before I played that video. The Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock has become Harvard's top holding after a 257% stake increase. So they bought a ton of the Bitcoin ETF, and I'm assuming they're probably going to give out more information at the end of Q4, whether or not they bought more. It seems like Larry Fink was mentioning them, or maybe another university endowment or another major fund that's just buying as much Bitcoin as they possibly can. They bought a significant share of an exchange traded fund that's directly backed by Bitcoin. I know it's not real Bitcoin, but some of these large institutions don't have any way to get exposure to Bitcoin other than through ETFs. And I think that's perfectly fine. They're getting their stake in the market because they truly believe that this thing is going up. Now, keep in mind, at the time, the shares were worth $442 million. Today, they're worth $357 million. But at some point, they'll be worth $1 billion. They'll be worth $10 billion. They'll be worth $100 billion. Either because Harvard is going to keep stacking more and more, or Bitcoin's prices is going to get to that point where these shares are worth significantly more than what they're worth today. For Harvard's shares to be worth $1 billion, Bitcoin only needs to go up by about 2.5 to 3 times from here. To me, this is absolutely insane. It shows you how opinions have changed. And even the people who still believe that Bitcoin is going to fail, their employers are buying Bitcoin. Jamie Dimon told you in the past that Bitcoin is going to fail. It's worth nothing. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a pyramid scheme, all of that. And if you listened to him, you would have lost out on this opportunity to buy Bitcoin back when you listened to him in, let's say, 2018, 2019. I say this all the time. There's a finite amount of Bitcoin. When these university endowments and sovereign funds buy as much Bitcoin as they possibly can, there isn't going to be enough left for you. You're not going to be able to get to 1 Bitcoin. You're not going to be able to get to 0.1 Bitcoin, a million Satoshis. When all of these funds want as much Bitcoin as they can get, and then they start borrowing against it and they never have to sell that Bitcoin again, you're not going to be able to get your hands on an amount of Bitcoin that's significant. At some point, I genuinely think that all of the human capital of an individual combined for their entire life won't earn them more than 10,000 Satoshis. It's kind of scary to imagine you can buy 10,000 Satoshis today for under 10 US dollars. At some point, an individual won't earn that many Satoshis in their entire life. And again, that could take decades, it could take 100 years, it could take 200 years. But because Bitcoin is a finite asset, it means that the price of everything will continue to decrease in terms of Bitcoin. The people who hold on to as much Bitcoin as they can are basically taking supply out of the market and they're bumping the price up. At some point in the future, people will figure out that fiat currencies are worthless. And at that point, you won't be able to trade your paper, your fiat currency, your US dollars for Bitcoin because nobody's going to want fiat currencies for their Bitcoin. Bitcoin is worth infinity US dollars. So get your hands on Bitcoin before these sovereign national funds get as much as they possibly can, before these university endowments are buying $1 billion worth of Bitcoin every single month, every single year. At some point in the future, the price that you see up here, something around $91,000 to $92,000, is going to be a rounding error. And at that point, there's going to be nothing that you can do to go back to buy Bitcoin at these $91,000, $92,000, $93,000 prices. In the future, when Bitcoin is worth 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, $10 million, people will be asking you if you could go back in time to 2025 to buy Bitcoin, would you do it? Your answer should always be no, because you're already buying as much Bitcoin as you possibly can. It almost feels like a time machine. When I look back at Bitcoin when it was at $16,000, $17,000, I have nothing but respect for my past self for studying Bitcoin, for putting in the time to learn what it is before these sovereign funds and university endowments and insurance companies and all these other institutions start participating in Bitcoin. Make sure that in 10, 15, 20 years, you're not looking back at yourself and wishing that you had taken action when you could.